Welcome back. My spouse, 31 male, whom I'll refer to as Hector, and I, 30 female, have been married for 2 years, and we've been together for nearly 3 years. Our initial encounter took place at a work conference. Hector appeared uneasy, as he tends to be shy and dislikes crowds. In an effort to be kind, I approached him and struck up a conversation. The rest was history, and we ended up married at a small backyard wedding a year later. Few months into our marriage, I started feeling unhappy. We were no longer going out every few days to the viral food places or to watch the indie bands at the club like we used to. Instead, we had settled into a routine of going to work, coming back home to chores, and some downtime after that. We would go out maybe once every 2 weeks, if that. When I voiced my frustrations, Hector promised things would change but never actually did. I was feeling overwhelmed and constricted in my new life. In hindsight, I feel like I did not communicate this with Hector. If I had, I'd not be here. One day, me and my friend group decided to hang out at this hyped food place 2 cities over. I had forgotten to put my wedding ring on, and while I was at the restaurant, a guy started hitting on me. I thought a little harmless flirting wouldn't hurt. He managed to convince me to join him at the restaurant bar. That night, nothing happened, but I did give him my phone number. Around that time, Hector had been preoccupied with other things, so our communication started dwindling. Then a few days later, the guy called and asked me out. I said yes. At this point, I did not consider this a date, more like an outing with an acquaintance, but as the evening progressed, things got heated. Then he propositioned me, and I accepted. We ended up spending the night at his place. The next morning, a sudden realization hit me, and I was so overcome with guilt that I broke down and confessed to the guy that I had a spouse at home. He was shocked and asked me to get out, so I quickly got dressed and came back home. I thought that was that, and tried being an exemplary wife over the next couple of days. I kept thinking back to what I did and felt guilty, but quickly things settled back into the normal routine. Then 2 days ago, Hector came back from work early and sat me down to talk. He said he knew what I had done and I had 5 minutes to confess if I wanted any chance at staying married to him. He looked eerily calm and that scared me. So I told him everything. Then I pleaded with him, but he said from the moment he heard everything from the guy I hooked up with, he knew that our marriage was over. He said I had desecrated over our marriage, and he had no intention of staying married to a hoe. Those words pierced my soul, and as of now, we're living temporarily apart. I came to stay with my parents after he ordered me out, but they can never even let me set foot in their house. They said they were ashamed that I was their daughter, and they slammed the door on me. I've come to stay with one of my girlfriends, but I hate it here. I don't have a room, and she has 2 kids, so it's very noisy. I've been trying to reach Hector, but he's blocked me across all platforms. My girlfriend got the news of my doing 2 days ago, and since then she's been cold to me, and dropping hints I should move out. But where can I go? I've got no one or nowhere to go. I know it's a long story, but I really need insight as to what went wrong in my life and what I should do to make it right. I don't know how I'll take it if he decides to send me divorce papers. I don't think I'm ready to be a divorcee. Please help me salvage my marriage. Story 2. Husband 29 and me 28 female got married back in 2015. Both of us got introduced by relatives and I pretty much fell for him because of his looks and physical appearance. He's an introvert by nature and doesn't really share much. It took us a while to get physical and for him to be comfortable enough around me. His parents passed away at a really young age, which probably has something to do with his behavior. Things were really good for the next few years and we have no issues till I ruined things. We had a new person join the team and he used to flirt a lot with me. I never really used to respond in a positive way and always ignored him. But one day, after some work drinks, we kissed. I immediately regretted what I did and felt so guilty it was killing me inside, but I liked the attention I was getting and slept with him. When COVID hit and we started working from home as I could not leave the house, I just kept in touch with him through texts and phone calls. One day, my husband was acting really cold towards me. That night, I tried to make a move on him, but he straight up refused and turned me down. That's when my heart sank, and I knew something was wrong as he had turned me down for sex. He became completely cold and turned into a different person. That whole week was horrible, and I really didn't like living like that, so I asked him what's wrong. He took a deep breath and told me I was only going to get one chance to come clean, and if I lied, he would not bother asking me any more questions, and that was it. He asked me since how long I've been cheating on him because he checked my phone records and saw the multiple calls and text messages to a single number at odd times. He found out who that number belonged to and got more details. I came clean and told him everything. He was suspicious of my behavior but was not 100% sure I was cheating on him. But once I confirmed the affair, that totally broke him. That was the first time I saw him cry in 5 years, and I felt so horrible. He was in so much pain that he couldn't even speak. He just locked himself in the guest room and told me to stay away from him as he didn't want to see me. In the morning, when I woke up, I straight away headed to the guest room to not find him there at all. He left a letter where he spoke about our marriage and his love for me and how I easily ruined everything. At the end, he wrote a poem which made me cry and said that was the last time he was contacting me and he wanted a divorce. He was going to stay with his sister for the time being till he finds other accommodation. After almost 2 months of no contact and many discussions through emails and promises, he said he will give me a chance, but things will never be the same and it was better that we divorced each other. I cried a lot the day he came home and was happy that he gave me an opportunity. We did have a few fights, but I tried my best to please him. After about 6 months, things finally got better and we started to get intimate with each other. But I really feel I lost him before he would care a lot for me and would nurture me. He only talks to me when I have something to say. He's completely stopped initiating kisses and random hugs. It's only me who does it, and he also doesn't cuddle me for too long. Sex used to be so tender and full of passion. Back then, he would try to swoop me off my feet and initiate sex in such a loving way. But now it's just, wanna have sex? I always give in, but I can see how he withdraws himself when I kiss him during sex and just treats me like a piece of meat. He used to be so dependent on me and would be quite vocal about what he needed. For example, something he wants to eat or wants me to do. I miss doing things for him. Whenever I try to do something on my end, he just tells me he will handle it. His personality has completely changed. When I spoke to him about my concerns, he simply said he doesn't feel like he needs to woo me over to sleep with him, considering how easily I gave it away to a stranger. Yesterday was the worst day of my life. He leaves in the morning and said he'll be back as he had to do something. He didn't return any of my phone calls and was dropped home by his friend early afternoon. When I saw him, I freaked out as his jaw was swollen. That's when I find he has his wisdom teeth taken out through surgery. I felt so stupid in front of his friend. He thought I knew about it. I know my husband's terrified of doctors and surgeries, but he didn't bother to share anything with me and decided to go through it all alone. I've been nonstop crying and don't really want to bother my husband while he's recovering. He totally refuses any help from me, and I don't really know what to do. You had a genuinely good man, the type every woman desires, and yet you chose to cheat on him. You kissed the other guy, regretted it immediately, but still carried on. The attention you received was enough to destroy your relationship. What's worse, you contacted the other person while your husband was in the same house as you, and now you expect him to simply return to normalcy. You shattered the one thing your introverted husband had in you, trust. You managed to break through his defensive walls, and now you want him to forgive and forget as if nothing happened. Comments. You say he has changed, but so have you in his eyes. You're not the person he got married to, who he felt intimate and dependent on. That person in his eyes was a lie. You as a loving wife never existed. It was all an act. All you see in him is the same he sees in you, an unrecognizable person who isn't the one they fell in love with. You created the person who's now your husband, and you created the person who your husband sees. Try not to think of yourself as the person you were before the infidelity, because you're not and will never be again. As a lot of people have said, it sounds like there's no recovery for this relationship. Even if it does get better in time, he will never fully trust you again. It will always be in the back of his mind. Also, he's not giving you everything you want. If he was, you wouldn't have allowed what happened with your colleague to happen. As others have said, your story doesn't really add up. I feel horrible and guilty. Yet you've stayed in contact with the guy you've slept with? Sounds to me like you're being a bit more calculated than you want people to believe. You're keeping him as a backup in case everything goes wrong with your husband.